Hello, my favorite marketing strategists. It's really good to spend some time with you today. I'm really excited that this is probably one of our very last videos. Not that I'm not excited to spend more time with you, but I'm excited because this is the opportunity we have to pull everything we have together into one assignment. And so what it's called is the Strategic Initiative and Managing Resources Assignment, your last decision that you're going to work on as a team. So let's take a step back. As you know, we've been talking in class about resources. And resources in a company, a firm, an organization is really difficult to manage because there's so many things out of our control, whether it be legal or economic, new technologies, innovation, competitors coming in. We can't just simply look at what we're spending this year and how we're spending it year over year because we have so many other factors that influence how we need to behave and react as an organization. And so we need to understand both the human resources, the people that we need to help us with our firms, what we're spending in terms of marketing, operations, supply chain costs, and all of these other things we have to allocate our resources to. And what we need to identify is not only what are we spending on and has it really been useful to us and has these particular resources help us reach our business and our marketing goals, but what are some of those things that simply have not worked? And we need to identify those as well. So as you know, there's really no great way of doing this. There's no perfect system. But, what you do, whether it's just looking at your resources, making sure you're reaching or you're not reaching your objectives, keeping an eye on all of what you're spending on, creating your offering, who's selling what are you selling, which channels are you using, and how much are you spending on those channels? Are you getting a good return on investment? And obviously, from your promotions perspective, are you promoting properly? What about sales and pricing? Are you giving a little bit too much in terms of concessions? So you need to ensure that you're tracking these things in a methodical way. And it can be simple or sophisticated. So the best way of really doing this is when you're creating your plans is to use an iterative approach, or attempt to allocate successes to particular tactics or strategies that you've done. You can learn a lot this way, and so that's really the best method, is always to be looking at what's working, what's not working, and trying to allocate those resources that you've spent to that success in what other way works for you. And you have to remember, in looking at resources, it's not just the marketing budget that we're allocated based on what we say we need to create our own goals or meet our own objectives. We have to look at everyone else in the organization, because sometimes those resources that we depend on, we don't always manage or own those budgets. So we are going to work on your very final strategy decision number 5. I call it pulling it all together, but really what it is looking at the overall strategic initiatives for the organization and determining, based on previous spend that the firm has had in their marketing initiatives, and based on what you believe your strategic initiatives that you will define for the organization will need in terms of resources. So basically, it's pretty high level thinking, and it's not always going to be intuitive, but I want you to take a lot of time to think about how best to structure the resources you've been given and align them to the strategies that you've been working on all semester. So here's the objective. Here's what we want to accomplish. I want you to take everything you've learned, from branding to offerings, acquiring customers, retaining customers, looking at some of those trade-offs you have to make. What are the big ideas you've come up with? And I want you to take all of those into consideration when you are creating 5 strategic initiatives for the firm for the following year. How are you going to get this done? You're going to analyze some financial statements and dig in some data to see what do you see from the annual report? What has the firm told you their initiatives are? And how much money do you have to spend based on what's been spent in previous years? I'm going to have you actually look at financial statements, try to determine as best as possible what those current operating expenses are, and I want you to do a trade-off analysis using a marketing mix. And remember, the marketing mix is all of the P's you have available to you and how are you going to use them and what percentage of your budget is going to be accounted for in each of those strategies. Finally, as always, you're going to create an executive brief for your CEO, and you are also going to evaluate the long-term commitment of your fellow group members. For this assignment, it's not just about this one. I want you to rate overall for the entire semester how much each person has contributed, not only just in workload, but in attitude as well. So let's get started here. So here's the background. Obviously, we always have a little bit of a background for you when we start an assignment. This time, your CEO has asked you to analyze all of the strategies that you've been working on throughout the semester, and the CEO wants you to review the firm's most recent strategic business initiatives. And the best way to find those are probably the annual report from the last year or some news releases, some quarterly statements, some quarterly announcements that come from the investment section of the website. And so you're going to look at what the firm wants to do and what you have recommended throughout the semester. Finally, you are going to prioritize that list and tell us 5 of the strategic marketing initiatives you're going to do for the organization. So that's what the CEO is asking of you. Here's the tasks at hand. The first thing you're going to do is analyze the most recent income statement from the annual report or 10K for your firm, and I'm going to show you what you're going to do with that in a minute here. You are going to try to identify, if possible, the operating expenses for marketing, sales, and research and development. The second thing you're going to do is develop those 5 strategic initiatives based on the assignments you've completed in the semester, as well as the marketing operating budget you've found. Thirdly, you are going to do, based on your marketing, sales, and your research and development, a resource allocation or a marketing mix. All of the top 3 are done through a workbook that I have uploaded in Canvas. It gives you a nice place for you to put your thoughts, your ideas down, and sort of work through this marketing challenge. Finally, you are going to create a professional executive summary document for the CEO, describing the rationale for your marketing mix, the list of strategic initiatives that you have worked on, and we'll talk about this in a minute. And then, include any exhibits that you want to share with the CEO. You can include the document you're working on, but this time, this is your final report. Create something that you personally would deliver to the CEO. Try to be maybe a touch more professional than you may have in our working assignments. So let's look at it this way. The first task you have, as I mentioned, I want you to look at the marketing mix allocation that you can find from a recent income statement, an annual report, or a 10K. You can go to the website and find these information. You can do at Yahoo Finance or anywhere that you're accustomed to downloading these statements. Once you've done that, I want you to identify the operating expenses for research and development and sales and marketing. This may not always be labeled as I have them here. You're going to have to do a little bit of digging and a little bit of hunting to see what it might be called, and that's part of the fun. And the other thing you'll need to know too is sometimes It's not going to be there, but I'm going to have you attempt to find another means of trying to identify these. And you're going to just simply, in thousands, show us what you mean here. So what do I mean by this? Okay, so I've got a couple of examples here. So I've taken some income statements from two different companies. The first is Dunkin' Donuts, the second is Uber. Two beloved companies and two very successful companies. So in this case, what have I asked you to do? I've asked you to look for operating expenses for sales, marketing, and research and development, because those are the items that you're going to create your marketing strategies around, or you have already throughout the semester. So let's look at Dunkin' Donuts' income statement here. You can see here that they've identified advertising expenses. So in this case, yeah, I'm going to put my cheaters on. In this case, you can see from the end of the year of 2019, and they are they're looking at their reported thousands here. So when you read a financial statement, as you know, if they say it's in thousands, you're going to add 3 more zeros to the numbers. So in this case, it looks like they are spending $506,755 million. So if you need to figure that out on your handy dandy, I know some of you aren't finance majors, so I'm showing you this. If you're looking that on your handy dandy phone, it would be $50 million that they are spending on advertising. So that's, you might think, wow, that's a lot of money. 506,755 000, $50 million. That's a lot of money on advertising. So in this case, what you are going to look at, they don't really have any sales here, and they're not really looking at research and development. So they're probably lumping those into another area. So what you can just do on your report here is, all you can find is you can put the 506 right here. Thousands, 506, what was it? 506, 755. And then so you're going to just do that. They don't say what the research and development is. Maybe they're not doing much. Maybe they're hiding it in the cost of ice cream or other products, or general and administrative expenses. That might be where they're hiding that, but we can't tell, so do the best you can here. All right, let's look at Uber. Now, Uber is a little bit more succinct here. Now, this time, I've taken a different shot at an income statement, and what they're saying is that their overall cash expenditures, they're spending 32% of their budget on sales and marketing and 15% on research and development. So you could go to the Uber site here, download your own, and let's look at the income statement right here. So you can see that oops, sorry, that's Cheesecake Factory, my bad. Let's see if we've got one for Uber here. It might be a little bit difficult to find. So I will just skip that, but trust me that there are actual data figures here for the percentages, and they will have data figures for each one. It's going to take you a while to find this. You're going to have to dig through these. That's all part of the fun. You're going to find from the income statement, you're going to find the associated numbers with this. So then again, when you go back to your spreadsheet, right here, you are going to, for your firm, determine what the research and development expenditures are for the last year and their sales and marketing expenses, and then total them up. And that's how I want you to just try to figure out the dollar amount for your operating expenses. As I mentioned, it may not always be clear exactly what those numbers are from the income statement, so do the best you can. I want you to come up with an operating expense for marketing. So the second thing that you're going to do, so now you have, if you're $50 million, you have $50 million to spend on marketing, say for example. We're going to look at that later, but what I want you to do now is to think about, based on that big pot of money that you have, what are those strategic initiatives that you are going to work on for the year. So if you think about it, maybe you're a restaurant, and one of your strategies could be something like, we are going to create an extensive and innovative new menu made from scratch. Sounds like something the Cheesecake Factory might do, and I think I may have stolen that right from their annual report. So think about a strategy for marketing. So in this case, new menu items for a restaurant would be, what are you going to do for developing new offerings, right? So even though it's a restaurant, the offering is what your product is. So that would be a marketing strategy. Then you might think about, okay, so we're in a new world here right now. This is a pandemic. Maybe another strategy could be, how do I enhance e-commerce experience and delivery services to achieve 60% of total revenue from out-of-store sales? So those people, maybe takeout or maybe delivery, maybe your company wants to expand and have fewer people inside the restaurants, because we know, who knows when that's going to change, when we're going to have full tables again. So maybe in order for them to get more orders, they have to enhance their e-commerce experience. So that could be another idea of a strategic initiative. You can think of things in terms of pricing. Maybe you want to do some significant discounting, or you want to partner with a retailer, or maybe you want to beef up sales on your e-commerce channels if you have something in terms of distribution. So think about all of those things in terms of strategies. Now let me give you a hint here. So what I want you to do is read through the annual report from last year, try to identify, and they will talk about it, what their existing strategic initiatives are for the year. It could be something like entering a new market. It could be focusing more time on e-commerce as opposed to delivery, or as opposed to brick and mortar. It could be investing in building new technology. All of those things are marketing initiatives. So take what you've learned, what you've created throughout the semester, take what you're hearing from the company themselves, and combine them into 5 short statements of strategic initiatives. So the last or the final task that you're going to do in the workbook that I've given you is try to figure out a marketing mix resource allocation. So you're a marketer, you're in charge of marketing, and you've got the P's that you're in charge of. And so what I want you to think about is your overall marketing budget. Remember, I had you come up with one based on the information you found from the annual report or the 10K, and say you've got $2 million. That's what you've recognized as your overall budget. I want you to come up with a mix or a resource allocation for your product offering and research and development, your promotion and advertising, pricing concessions. So these are things that, all of your couponing you might do, or sales. Those have to come from somewhere. They're coming from the marketing budget. Distribution channels. So let's say, for example, you are a restaurant, like we had looked before, and you have $2 million that you're asking for the year. I want you to put your percentage of allocation for your mix and what that associated budget would be. So for example, you wanted to do the strategic initiative of creating new menu items. Well, how are you going to go about creating new menu items? You have to make stuff. Maybe you hire chefs, or maybe you have your chef create things, and then you have to have them tested through consumers. Do they like them, etc.? What are they willing to pay? Creating new offerings like menu items, they're going to spend $200,000 for that research. Secondly, they're going to put 50% into promotion and advertising, whether it's digital advertising, streaming services, billboards, point of sale, whatever the flavor might be. They've decided to put their eggs in that basket. 50% of it is going into advertising. Maybe they're going to be advertising their new menu items. $1 million. And then so pricing concession, again, are the buy one, get one frees, the concessions, those things that you are discounting off your retail price in order to get the sale. So they're going to do just a slight bit of concessions at $100,000. And remember, we may have wanted to make some optimization changes to the e-commerce channel, because if a restaurant is deciding that they want to have 60% of their revenue come from takeout orders and delivery as opposed to sitting down in the restaurant, they've decided that they need to do some enhancements on their website to make it easier to order. They're going to spend $600,000 on optimizing that experience. So this is the last part of the resource allocation you're going to do. So finally, you're going to take these three things, you're going to package them up like you do in an executive summary, a one-page document to the CEO describing what is your mix and the rationale that you've decided. I also want you to list each of the initiatives you've done. You've developed those 5 statements, and then you're going to very briefly tell me why. Why is it important? How you plan to execute the strategy. Again, not in great detail, but enough just to let them know this is how you would approach it. And then how are you going to measure this? Are you going to measure it in revenue? Are you going to measure optimization on the website? Are you going to measure, do people like the new offerings? What percentage of people are taking advantage of it? So give me an idea of how you'll measure that. And then finally, any other exhibits that you would like to show to the CEO. So again, a really nice, compact, doesn't need to be more than 1 page. It could be a slideshow deck if you prefer, but it's up to you on how you're going to do that for this particular summary. So that said, the last thing you're going to do is to create a final peer evaluation. Again, I want you to look at your peers throughout the semester, how they've done on each one of these decisions, and I want you to be honest. Let me know, because I don't like freeloaders, and if somebody's not cutting the mustard, or they're not showing up to meetings, or they're not contributing, please don't let them get your A. All right. Okay, so that's the final thing. Okay, so if you're in the day class, during the day class you are going to create a presentation. If you're in the evening class, we won't have a formal presentation for you to do. So at that point, you can cut off and stop watching this video. And I love you all, and you're great. If you want to hear what the day class is doing, that's okay. But anyways, if you haven't, you know how to reach me. I'm here. But for the day class, you are also going to do a presentation, and a formal presentation sort of. So what I mean by that is that we're going to be on Zoom or in person, and you are going to, all of your members have to participate. You're simply going to tell me a little bit about the health of the brand and the outlook for the future. You are also going to tell me about the top 2 challenges for your firm. And then you're going to state the 5 strategic initiatives you've identified that meet these challenges. The goals you intend to achieve, the why, the how, the what's the marketing mix, and what metrics are you going to use to measure success. So describe to me 1 disruptive innovation as well that you came up with. So for the day team, this is what your presentation is going to look like. We will do it during class time over 3 class periods, and it should be about 10 to 15 minutes of content. You'll need to upload some sort of visual. It doesn't have to be PowerPoint. It can even be a video if you want to do some sort of pitch without having to present in person. And then we'll have 5 minutes of Q&A afterwards. So that said, thank you all so much. And I am really excited about seeing what you're pulling together on this, and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.